Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Boom Comic Source collaboration. We're here to talk about Ghost Machine #1, dropped last Wednesday from Image Comics. It's an imprint. It's a publishing line, if you will. You know, Image is really the only true 100% creator-owned publisher out there, right? Where they don't take any percentages at all, and you own everything. But as sort of the flip side of that, you have to do everything yourself. You got to do your own marketing. You got to do your own promotions. You got to do your own editing and all that sort of stuff. So this is Geoff Johns' imprint, if you will, his basically his comic book company at this point, but being published under Image, so they will handle a few things, right? Logistics in terms of getting your book printed, getting it shipped, and sometimes getting it distributed. It just depends on what kind of deal you sign with Image. So what's interesting is, you know, previous to this, Johns was doing his own kind of a smaller imprint at Image Comics that was just characters he created and characters that he co-owned along with his co-creators. And there was hints of more things to come, right? So it all started off with Geiger, which I really enjoyed. Gary Frank, his longtime collaborator, was the artist on it. And then there were a few other things hinted at, right? Like I want to say GI Joe, but it's not GI Robot. GI, what's it called? Is it GI Joe? It's not. I think you're muted.
Sorry, yeah. No, it's there's so many characters here. Um
I have it right here. It's yeah, GI. Oh, maybe I don't have it.
yeah, Junkyard Joe.
Junkyard Joe. That's what it
Junkyard
is.
Joe.
Not
Yeah.
yeah, Junkyard Joe, which is basically a robotic soldier. Um, and yeah, then we had this The Unnamed, and there was others hinted at. Red Coat, drawn by Brian Hitch, and uh, the Northerner, and yeah, we saw this timeline and what have you. But an interesting thing happened along the way, right? Like before, those are the only two that came out, was Geiger and Junkyard Joe, and then before any of the rest could come out, before The Unnamed, before any of the other mysteries revealed, uh, Johns did an interesting thing, and he invited in a bunch of his other creator friends to come and join him. I'm guessing that's why the name had to be changed. So it went from being called Mad Ghost to being called Ghost Machine. And my understanding is that everybody who's a part of Ghost Machine has equity in the company. So it's not so different from a little company that you may have heard us talk about before called Bad Idea. They were sort of the first ones to do this, and they did it years ago. And it's a real incentive for the creators to do their best work, because and to have these things show up in other mediums, because they own the rights. No one else owns the rights except for the creators that are working on the project. So as kind of a launch of Ghost Machine proper, I guess you'd say, they put out this one shot with some characters that we've seen before, some characters that have been hinted at before, and then some brand new characters. So I'll run through them real quickly, the stories that you have in here. We have The Unnamed, which is sort of the almost like a spine story, if you will, that runs through the Geoff Johns story, that talks about who these characters are and how they're related, if you will. And so for anybody who hasn't read any of the Geiger stuff, there is a Geiger story in here from Geoff Johns, Gary Frank, and Brad Anderson on colors that sort of gives a recap of the story so far, if you will, so you could kind of get caught up. And then there's a Red Coat story. This is the first time we've seen a Red Coat story in print. I mentioned before, the artist is Brian Hitch. It's written by Geoff Johns. Again, Brad Anderson on colors. And then we have that unnamed timeline that Rocky had on the screen before, as well as kind of an explanation, a text piece on who the unnamed are. And then completely away from that little corner of the Geoff Johns universe, the unnamed corner, if you will, we have a Rook Exodus story, which again, Geoff Johns is writing, but this time he brings in another fabulous artist. And this guy, he hit it so big so fast. Like, he doesn't have a huge body of work because he became so popular so quickly. And then now he kind of like only does stuff with Geoff, and he probably, you know, he does covers now and then for people, and he probably gets to charge, you know, like $6,000, $10,000 a cover because they sell so well. I'm talking about Jason Fabuk. who people will know from Batman Eternal. He did the Three Jokers with Geoff Johns as well. He worked with Geoff also on his Justice League series for a little while. Again, Brad Anderson on colors, and that Rook Exodus story is a story about these people who are on a sort of a planet that was supposed to be terraformed and used to grow food, and then things kind of grow sideways. But everybody that goes to that planet, they're a rook, and they've been given powers by the corporation that sort of runs the different planets and that are supposed to be mined or used for agriculture or what have you. They give them the ability to talk to a certain type of animal, right? So there's one guy that's sort of can talk and control pigs. One guy can do birds. One guy can do foxes. One guy can do wolves. That sort of thing. So we get a story. You get an idea of that world. You get to see Fabeck's great art, and then we have a couple text pieces that talk about those wardens, and then we get into the non Geoff Johns stuff. We have a story in the Family Odysseys corner of Ghost Machine. The first one is called Rocket Fellers, kind of a takeoff on the family name Rockefellers. And these are people from the future who are hiding out in the past. And it's written by Peter J. Tomasi, fantastic art by Francis Manapul. And then there's another story by Peter Tomasi, this time with Peter, I'm going to butcher this name. He's a Danish artist. He's done some work, a lot of work for DC in the past. But I think it's Peter Snedberg. I'm not 100% on that. But that's basically a really interesting story. So Heaven and Hell, we all know they've been at war in literature for centuries. So in order to finally bring the war to an end, they do like what Darkseid and Highfather did. They exchange offspring, right? So the woman or the little girl that was born from hell, basically, gets to go be with the family of angels, and then the boy that was born from the family of heaven has to go be with the family of devils, if you will. So Hornsby and Halo, that one's called. And then we move to sort of the horror section of Ghost Machine, Hyde Street, where we've got a couple more Geoff Johns stories. Hyde Street Amusements, which is Geoff Johns, Lamont McGee, and Yvonne Reese handling the art, listed as storytellers. And then we've got Hyde Street itself, Geoff Johns and Yvonne Reese as storytellers. Danny Mickey handles the inks, Brad Anderson on colors. And then finally, Devour, which really short, just a couple page story, which was really, really interesting to me. And that's by, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Maytal Zedget. The last name is Zchut, with Yvonne Reese art, Danny Mickey, Brad Anderson on colors. And then there's a ton of variant covers. So these are interesting concepts. And there's also a couple of text pieces, as I mentioned, and not just text pieces that talk about the story, but text pieces that talk about Ghost Machine itself. Because when you give that lineup, there's some real star power here. And there's also some people you've probably never heard of, right? So let me go over who's a part of Ghost Machine so far. They've said they're recruiting other people, and I think they've even announced a couple others that haven't had a chance to work in any of the Ghost Machine, at least in this published comic yet. But yeah, Jason Fabok, Gary Frank, Brian Hitch, Geoff Johns, Francis Manapul, Brad Meltzer's one that he didn't have anything in this book, but it's a name people know. Best-selling novelist, like New York Times bestseller novelist. Yvonne Reese, Peter J. Tomasi. Now, Lamont McGee and Maytal Zidget, people have probably never heard of. So Lamont McGee was a writer on the Flash TV series. So in that Greg Berlanti CW verse, as it will, I'm sure that's how he crossed paths with Geoff Johns. He's written a comic before. He had a story in last year's DC Power one shot. And now Zaytal, she's never worked. This is her first published comic work. Her background is as a script coordinator, story writer's room coordinator, what have you, on the Stargirl TV show, which Geoff Johns was heavily involved in. Obviously, he created Stargirl sort of based on his sister, like a lot of her traits and what have you, his sister that tragically died in a plane crash. So, yeah, they're bringing in some new voices as well, some people that have never had the chance to write comics which I think is really interesting. And then Peter Snedberg, as I said, he's done a ton of work before for DC, but not anything in a long time. Starman and work on Sandman are the things he's most noted for. But yeah, a guy lives in Denmark, Danish, super talented as well. So overall, I thought this was a great introduction because you get a little sort of taste and hint of all the different, or not all, but the stories that are sort of on the schedule, as it were, to be released. But you also get a chance to hear from Ghost Machine as a company, kind of what their values are, what they're doing in terms of creator equity, how they're being different than other publishing entities. And I mean, this is something I want to support. First of all, the stories and the art are fantastic, so I'm in for that reason. But also the fact that it's not creators being screwed over. Like, how many times did we talk about Marvel and DC stuff where we're like, that's not right? Ed Brubaker not getting any money for anything related to the Winter Soldier. That's not right. That's his idea. He should be getting some royalties for that. So anyway, I thought this was just fantastic. Rocky, what were your thoughts on Ghost Machine kind of as an entity and creator equity, and then on this issue in particular?
Uh, well, like I love the. This is probably distillery done right, but I love the concept here. If there's one minor gripe, and it's minor, this feels like it feels a little bit like a giant advertisement, which and a lot of these stories I've already seen before, and it's interesting because Geoff Johns actually said in more than one interview, he did an interview with Comic Pals, him and Gary Frank, and they were talking about how actually Geoff Johns is actively trying to move against variant covers. They're not going to have a billion covers every issue, but he said the one exception is going to be this Ghost Machine, and of course there's a whole pile of different covers. Dealing with all the various characters here, and it is pretty cool. There's lots of cool covers, and I have to admit I'm getting a whole pile of them because I really enjoyed them. I really also like the concept on some of this stuff. My personal favorite that I'm looking forward to the most is Hyde Street. I like the fact that with Hyde Street, it reminded me, all those crazy back in the day growing up when I was young, all the advertisements in comic books where you could buy like x-ray glasses and what have you, and just crazy things. And that Hyde Street it's almost like it's interactive. All those ads you read in the comic books, it's related to this character called Mr. Hyde. And if you buy this stuff, it's almost you get Twilight Zone vibes from it. And it's this, all the mysterious and terrible things have happened on Hyde Street for over a century. And so there's a mystery there. And I like the way it's teased, and it's Geoff Johns and Ivan Reis. And I'm really looking forward to that. Fantastic art. Obviously, Geoff Johns is a great writer. So I'm actually really looking forward to that. The other one that I'm looking forward to quite a bit is I do like Redcoat. I like Redcoat because I like because he's kind of a dick of a character, and he's probably the worst person to be immortal, but he doesn't seem to die. He's got origins in 1776, and he's wandered through America, and he's juxtaposed against another character called the Northerner, who is a mysterious character, and just a way to whet the appetite. I'm sort of a history buff, and I like the fact that they've created their own timeline here, and this unnamed, this timeline starts in 1776 and it ends 25 years from now, and you can see some of the characters we met already: Junkyard Joe and Geiger, but there's the Monster, and then there's American Widow X. We're introduced to this other character, this character, I think Sarah's her name. She becomes president of the United States. And who's the first ghost? There's so many questions that we have. Now, I know Geoff Johns is really good at drawing history here. He's really good at drawing and connecting the lines in a universe that can be really screwed up like the DC universe. He's really good at putting lipstick on a pig of continuity that's a mess. He's really good at that. This is Geoff Johns with a A-level talent creative team starting from scratch here. the biggest thing that can go wrong is delays, delays, delays. Because when I think of Geoff Johns, I think of two things: quality storytelling and waiting a long time to get the quality storytelling. And I'm hoping that I hope that with all the talk and he's given interviews and he's saying all the right things, but he said all the right things before too. I don't want there to be delays here because I'm really enjoying these characters. I love Junkyard Joe. I love Geiger. These are really good characters, but I just want them to push this stuff. I want this stuff to come out on time and in a timely manner. And we're 4 months in advance here. I think the first issue hits in April, according to all the solicitations here. So they've had plenty of time to put probably 4 or 5, hopefully the first story arc in the bag before the first issue even comes out of some of these comics. And that's what I'm hoping, because this has all the hallmarks of something that can be tremendously successful. And unlike Distillery, another publishing initiative with Snyder and what have you, that's completely been a non-starter. This is different. And again, all in one, relatively inexpensive comic book. You get, I think it's $5.99. You get $4.99, and you get 40 pages or something. So it's pretty good. So yeah, I'm impressed. I'm definitely on board for it.
Yeah, I agree. In terms of that's the one thing. I mean, it's not all Geoff Johns. I mean, obviously, people are going to be in charge of their own stuff. Again, I'm not sure what the editorial structure is. Knowing Johns, I don't know how much editing he's going to do. Probably not very much. People are going to sort of be on their own, is my guess. But I also think they probably will hire some editors to kind of keep the trains running on time. But yeah, it is a concern. And again, I'm not pointing the fingers at anybody, but we have seen that books that have Geoff Johns and Gary Frank, working on them have had delays. So, the question is, are you going to solicit it when it's completely finished, or what's the plan here? So yeah, delays would definitely hurt it. But in terms of the books, we mentioned some of them. So we have actual release dates for a new Geiger #1, a Redcoat #1, and a Rook #1. Rocky mentioned them being solicited for April. And then also some of the ones that we mentioned. So Rockefellers, we know is coming. It's going to be a title. There's a Hyde Street that's coming. That's going to be a title. We have Hornsby and Halo. I described that. That's going to be a title. And then we have something called The Soulless. I'm pretty sure that's Brad Meltzer's project. Don't have any details on that yet. And then we have Devour, and that's the one by Maytel that I mentioned. And all we know, there's a little, like, one-page little sort of interlude, if you will, in the Hyde Street story, where this woman, who appears to be a little on the heavy side in terms of her weight, she walks into this place, this little, almost like a shack store, almost looks like a general store, and it says "Fat Free Grand Opening," and she goes in there, and there's this woman behind the counter that says, "Oh, if you've had trouble losing weight or what have you, I have the perfect pill for you. All you'll ever need is one diet pill. It's guaranteed to work for anyone." And she holds up this jar that says Devour. And so I kind of am thinking about the Stephen King story Thinner. If you guys know that story, where it was a guy that was kind of heavy set and he got cursed. And no matter how much he ate, he couldn't even gain weight. So I wonder if it's something along those lines. I guess we'll have to wait and see. And then also First Ghost. We mentioned First Ghost. You mentioned Sarah Hyde. That one also drawn by Brian Hitch, along with Redcoat. But yeah, this woman who is not really into politics is very popular. She becomes an astronaut. She's it says she's a teacher. Again, we have some of these who's who type pages in here. And yeah, she basically, she was in the Army. She becomes a high school principal, actually, and then goes up into space as an astronaut, gets super popular, wins the election for president of all things, which, may have sounded far-fetched back in the day. Doesn't seem so far-fetched now with the way things are going with American politics. But then she gets to the White House and realizes that it's haunted, that there's a ghost there, and that's the first ghost. So really curious about that one as well. So, Rocky, can you go to the page where we get the images of all the wardens for Rook? We get to see all the different helmets that give them the ability to communicate and control these animals. Um, I'm kind of I'm
Yeah, it's
kind of
on there. Yeah.
curious. Yeah. So the first one we meet in the one that's right above Rook, we meet him in the story, and we know that that's the guy that can control birds. And then the one in the upper left, we also meet. That's the guy that can control swine. And then the one that's down diagonal from the Rook, that she's got a character entry in the page as well. She can control wolves. Dire Wolf is her name. But the others we don't see in the story. So I think the one to the left of the Rook that looks like a turtle to me,
Yeah.
and then the one below Direwolf looks like a spider. So I think insects probably, even though technically a spider's not an insect. I get it, but in that same sort of you know territory. And then to the right of that, it looks like a ram with the horns.
Yeah.
And
Interesting looking characters. Interesting looking masks. Yeah.
yeah, to the right of that, we've got what looks like a fox to me. Above that, I'm not sure. I'm guessing bear. I don't know, bear maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Above,
like,
yeah.
or a panther on the one. Yeah, I guess.
Could that be a panther? Yeah, it could be a
I,
panther. I mean, it looks kind of bulky. So that's why I'm going with bear. Above that, obviously, is some kind of an elk or deer or what have you. Might just be like horned or hoofed animals. And then the one in the upper right, that's the one where I'm just not sure. So the way the ears stick out, and it almost has like a beak. I kind of was thinking, well, maybe it's some kind of a rodent, but then it also looks like it has little horns. So is it like a goat? Like I have the upper right. I couldn't figure it. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know what kind of animal. Any
yeah. It's
guesses?
uh no. It, well, the upper right. I'm inclined to think maybe it could almost. It does almost look like bird like or something.
But it's got
Uh,
those little
like
horns. That doesn't make sense to me.
yeah, you're right. It's kind of got little horns, but then it looks like it has a beak too. So
Yeah.
it looks really weird, like it's a hybrid of something. But yeah, the whole thing with Rook Exodus is really odd. It's combining like animals and with science fiction and exploring and sort of like terraforming a new world and corporate power. And I'm not really I'm ironic. I'm not. I love the art, but I got to say that's for me. It's the one I'm least interested in actually. So it's the one that could surprise me the most. I mean, Jason Fabok arcs. I mean, I think artistically, I can imagine it being very challenging for Jason Fabok because he can be so creative with all these masks and everything. And frankly, if it's successful, I can just can you imagine all the action figures and the masks and the Halloween? If
Oh
it's
yeah.
successful, it's going to be insane. But it is definitely something where this type of excitement right out of the gate, you could almost have like a Dungeons and Dragons kind of feel to it, the potential for expansion. And by the way, I did pre-order my Ghost. I got my Ghost Machine shirt and cap coming. So, and unfortunately, it hasn't arrived yet in time for this review. But I'm sure this won't be the first Ghost Machine comic we'll be reviewing. There'll certainly be more coming out in April. So, looking forward to that.
Yeah, I honestly I was trying to decide what I'm looking forward to the most, like which one, and I really can't. And I know it kind of sounds like, oh, he's just kissing ass or whatever. I can't decide. Every one of them is interesting to me in different ways. The Rockefeller one, I mean, the Francis Manipul art and the color work is just fantastic. This idea of this family, they got a little bit of quantum leap with the grandma who's still in the future, but she's got a hologram that's being projected back in time somehow for them to talk to. Just fantastic. Just although one of the things I did notice again, just to nitpick, when you look at the bios, again they have little text bios. The the mom's name, it says, because it says birth name, and her birth name for her last name is Rockefeller, and I don't
Right.
like that threw me for a second. I was like, wait, I thought that was his wife. what is that, a sister? I was like, no, 'cause wouldn't her birth name be? She'd have a different last name, right? He didn't marry his sister. At least I sure hope not. So I think that's just an oversight, that they put the birth name of the mother with the same last name as the rest of the family. But yeah, that one has me really excited. Like I said before, the Devour story has me excited. Yeah, I'm just really excited for these. But I echo your sentiment that the biggest worry I have for these is, yeah, they're all creator owned, and you don't really have anybody telling you what to do, but also you don't have anybody telling you what to do. Like, think about the biggest struggle that Image Comics itself had when it started back in 92, 93. Far and away the biggest complaint and the thing that pissed off retailers was late books, right? Like, to the point that books would be on their invoice and they were paying for them and they wouldn't be in the box because they were late. And the stores are paying for the books and then they don't even have the book to put up on the shelf to sell. And when it finally did show up, sometimes months later, people had forgotten about it. Nobody wanted it then. And then they were stuck with, hundreds of copies of books they couldn't sell. So
Yeah, I
I was going to say, just different world now. Hopefully we don't see that kind of behavior from Ghost Machine.
yeah, I wanted to my second favorite, the one I'm looking forward to after Hyde Street is actually Hornsby and Halo, and I like the fact that because I believe Peter Tomasi has taken that one as well, with art
Yeah.
by Peter Snebjerg or whatever. I'm saying his name wrong. Bjorn Hansen, but Peter J. Tomasi, we know he's really good at telling stories for young people. He's the guy with Super Sons. He's coming out with Sinister Sons, and the whole idea of Hornsby and Halo, the Rose Hornsby and Zachary Halo. They're basically, it reminds me of the new Genesis apocalypse scenario of Darkseid giving his son Orion exchanging sons with the High Father as a way to harbor peace between New Genesis and Apocalypse, and of course how they're raised. And so this is sort of I don't imagine this is going to be the same, but I like the concept. And the fact that they're not aware of their true powers, and the fact that they're on different sides of a baseball team in the short story in this opening anthology, so to speak. But I really like it. I think they're inclined to want to like each other. They're clearly opposites, and they got different families. And because Rose Hornsby is the devil raised by a good family. Zachary Halo is a good guy raised by parents that are jerks because they're evil, and the way that their own innate natures manifest themselves throughout the story is something that, with Peter Tomasi's imagination, should be very, very interesting. And I imagine for him, it's more interesting. These characters are potentially more interesting than maybe the characters he's accustomed to, and he's got the freedom to do what he wants and really challenge these characters in a way that maybe he's limited with Super Sons and even with Sinister Sons, because he's dealing with corporate characters. So I'm really curious to see where he goes with it.
There's baseball in it, so I'm on board right away. Right? I mean, these young kids, they're playing baseball against each other on opposite teams. That was fantastic to see. But you're right. Like, Peter J. Tomasi writing these characters that are around 10, 11, 12 years old. We know he can do that really, really well. He's shown that in the past. So, yeah, I mean, there's no reason for that book not to succeed, and really for all of these to succeed. So, yeah, I imagine we'll be covering more of them in the future. Really excited. And, yeah, I would love to have Geoff Johns on and talk about them. We'll see if we can make that happen.
Yeah, and I note that on the Rockefellers, I like the eclectic array of all the characters. The family is ranging in age from ages 9 all the way up to ages 120, and what a great concept for a series. We had a comedy sitcom that sort of played with the idea of aliens living on Earth and trying to fit in, but people from the future trying to fit into the past and having a very specific mission. I think that's pretty cool because of their knowledge of the future, and yet they don't want to upset the apple cart. They don't want to change history, and yet at the same time they're battling against they're part of the time zone protection program in the future, and their enemy is this person called the Vertex, and they got to defeat the Vertex, but they don't really know what the enemy looks like. And so again, just a very well done way to sort of whet the appetite. And that's also by Peter Tomasi and Francis Monopole on the art. So yeah, again, I mean, just really good stories to, I mean, in fact, it's a little frustrating that we got to wait till April. I hope people, when come April, remember how good this tease is, because I think 3 months having to wait 3 months to get these stories continued might be a little bit, might have been, I don't know if that was necessarily the greatest marketing idea. Like I would think they should come out a month from now, not 3 months from now. But I understand with the delays and everything else, I'd rather have them come out on time and consistent.
Yeah, but if you had done that, then you don't give retailers a time to hand sell. And also, if Ghost Machine comes out and then the next month the books start coming out, FOC's already passed. You can't even order any of the books if you're a retailer. So you got to order your books 2 months ahead of time. Give them a month to talk about it. I think that's
I guess that's right. Pre-order and build up some hype.
Again, don't even get me started on the insanity of the way the comic industry works. You have to order stuff 2 months ahead of time, sight unseen, before it's even actually been printed. Because I got to know how much of a print run to actually make. So yeah, it's a little bit insane. Anyway, any other thoughts, Rocky?
I know, just I was quite pleased with this. I normally hate variant covers, but I think I'm pretty sure I've gotten at least 4 or 5 of these covers because I just love them. And so I embraced my inner hypocrisy and violated my rule, and I bought a bunch of variant covers here. But man, they're gorgeous, so it's hard to resist. What about yourself? Did you have are you getting more than one cover?
For Ghost Machine, I think I want to say I got 3 of them. I got the regular cover, I got the foil, I got the Jason Fabok one. I think I got the Rockefellers one. I might. Cool. I got a lot of them. I don't even remember. I don't think I got the Redcoat one. That might have been one I didn't get. But yeah, I got quite a few. I mean, I was like I'm like, I try not to get more than one because if the inside's the same, what's the point? But they're so awesome looking that just there's part of me I just wanted to tell my retailer, just give them all. I'll just give me one of each. But I was able to resist. I was able to resist doing that. But yeah, I'm really excited for these. I can't wait till they come out and we get to talk about them and experience them a little more. So,
right on.
Well, good. All right. Well, hope you guys all had a chance to pick up a Ghost Machine. I know my retailers got a ton of them. They ordered so many. I if I had to guess, they probably ordered like 1,000 of these books. Now that's for like, let's see, how many stores? That's for 5 stores. They might have even ordered more than 1,000 actually.
Well, they had a huge promotion. Geoff Johns was meeting. If you ordered 100 copies, they matched them and gave you another 100 copies. They were matching you one for one. Okay. It was a huge promotion.
So maybe they did order like 1,000 because so when you went in there last Wednesday and they've got the wall of books and they're probably, I'd say like 15 feet, at least 15 feet, the shelves, and there's like 6 of them. One whole 6-foot or 15-foot shelf was just Ghost Machine. It was just all the different covers. So
crazy.
Yeah. And the guys at the counter were like, buy Ghost Machine, buy Ghost Machine. So yeah, I'm sure they have a ton of them. But anyway, that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Hope you've had a chance to check out Ghost Machine. Hopefully your retailer still has some and you can go and pick out whichever cover you want. But we appreciate you joining us as always. Don't forget to subscribe to Rocky's channel. If you're listening to the audio only version of this, head over to YouTube. Comic Space Boom ! Is a channel. Leave some comments. Let us know your thoughts on Ghost Machine, any of these particular stories that you're really looking forward to. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you know when Rocky puts out new content. That channel, Comic Boom, is where we do our DC Spotlight every week. So you want to be sure and check it out. Conversely, if you are watching this on YouTube and you're curious about the other audio-only content or the Spawn Daily, Do a search for the Comic Source on YouTube. You'll find our channel where we do the complete Spawn chronology every day. And then most of our other content is on whatever you listen to your podcast on. Just go to your favorite podcast platform, do a search for the Comic Source. You'll find us there. You can subscribe. Go back and listen to our thousands of previous episodes. Join us for interviews and convention coverage and all of that. So, as always, we appreciate the support, and we will talk to you next time.
See you later.